Chapter 1. Reunion at the Engagement Party. New York Steele Grand Hotel. The extravagant engagement party of Vincent Steele and Isabella Laurent. At the top floor of New York's most luxurious hotel, a grand and opulent ballroom unfolded, magnificent like a royal palace. Lavish Swarovski crystal chandeliers cast a dazzling glow over the resplendent scene, reflecting off the intricate evening gowns of the ladies and the expensive tuxedos of the gentlemen. Tables were meticulously arranged with white silk tablecloths, flickering scented candles, imported white roses from France, and vintage wine glasses shimmering under the chandeliers. The hall was filled with laughter, the clinking of glasses, and congratulatory toasts celebrating what was considered the event of the year in high society. On the main stage, Vincent Steele stood tall in a perfectly tailored black Tom Ford suit, exuding the commanding aura of one of New York's most powerful businessmen. His chiseled features were flawless, like a marble sculpture, but his deep blue eyes were as emotionless as ice. Beside him, Isabella Laurent, the only daughter of the prestigious Laurent family, one of America's most influential dynasties, was smiling in satisfaction. She was adorned in a couture wedding gown by an exclusive designer, her gaze triumphant as she surveyed the crowd. This was her day. Soft orchestral music played, signaling the most important moment of the night. Vincent took Isabella's delicate hand, preparing to slide an exquisite diamond ring onto her finger. "Daddy!" Everything froze. The music cut off abruptly. Every gaze in the grand hall turned in unison toward the source of that innocent voice. Vincent stood motionless. The flawless mask he wore suddenly shattered into blank disbelief. From the middle of the crowd, a small boy, no older than 3 or 4, was running straight toward the stage. Wavy brown hair, pale, smooth skin, sharp, piercing blue eyes, a face identical to his. The boy ran with excitement, his tiny leather shoes tapping against the polished marble floor. His face lit with joy as if he had just found the most important person in his life. He rushed forward, clinging tightly to Vincent's leg, tilting his small face up with pure, innocent eyes. The lavish event had instantly turned into a catastrophic scandal. Vincent Steele, New York's coldest, most powerful man, had an illegitimate child? The air grew thick with tension. Whispers erupted, growing louder by the second. Guests exchanged stunned glances. Some covered their mouths in shock. Others stared at Vincent, waiting for his reaction. On stage, Isabella's fingers clenched into fists, her eyes darkening with rage. Vincent remained frozen. He had completely lost control. Everything blurred around him, leaving only the boy before him. Who was this child? Why did he call him Daddy? His heartbeat pounded violently, like being thrown into a raging storm with no way out. The silence was suddenly shattered by a commanding female voice. "Come here, sweetheart." The woman who disappeared 4 years ago. From the crowd, a woman stepped forward. Grace Carter. Every gaze instantly shifted to her. A deep sapphire gown hugged her slender frame, accentuating an air of elegance and confidence. The rhythmic click of her heels on marble resonated with steady, unwavering steps, as if nothing in the world could shake her. But what left the guests most astounded was her eyes, cold, sharp, yet holding a profound, hidden pain. She met Vincent's gaze head-on, without hesitation. 4 years apart, 4 years of silence, 4 years of hiding a shocking secret. Now she had returned, no longer the fragile girl of the past, no longer looking at him with love-struck adoration, only coldness, only resentment. Vincent felt as if he had been punched in the gut. He couldn't believe it. 4 years ago, Grace Carter, the woman he once loved, vanished without a trace. Now she had reappeared, and with her, a boy who looked exactly like him. Max, the 4-year-old boy before him, clinging to his mother's gown. Yet his striking blue eyes watched Vincent with curiosity. "Dad?" Vincent struggled to breathe. His mind spun. This boy. Was he his son? Grace knelt down, placing a gentle yet firm hand on Max's shoulder, her voice soft but resolute. "Max, come to Mommy." Max hesitated. He didn't want to let go of Vincent, but after a moment of uncertainty, he finally released his grip and ran toward his mother. A strange emptiness settled in Vincent's chest. His hands clenched into fists, an unbearable discomfort rising within him. Grace took Max's hand and turned to leave. But Vincent's voice rang out, dangerously low. Wait! His deep, commanding tone reverberated through the hall. Grace halted. Slowly she turned back, facing Vincent once more. Their eyes locked, blazing with fury, laden with anguish, bursting with unspoken words. Vincent stepped forward, his voice deliberate, menacing. Grace, you owe me an explanation. 4 years of separation, 4 years of silence, 4 years of hiding an unforgivable truth. But tonight, he would not let her walk away again. Welcome to Soul Stories. Pukal. Life can be overwhelming, but here we share heartfelt tales to bring you peace, joy, and inspiration. Your support, every comment, like, and follow means the world to us. It motivates us to create more meaningful and uplifting stories just for you. Did our latest story touch your heart? Leave a yes in the comments if you agree. Subscribe now and be part of a community that spreads love, kindness, and positivity. Let's make every day a little brighter, together. Chapter 2, Confrontation. Outside, the party continued under a thick veil of tension. Whispers spread like wildfire, each guest adding to the swirling storm of speculation. But inside the VIP suite on the top floor, the air was far heavier, suffocating, almost unbearable. The grand, luxuriously decorated room suddenly felt stiflingly small as Vincent Steele and Grace Carter stood face to face, barely a meter apart. Vincent stood tall, his broad shoulders seemingly capable of bearing the weight of the world. But right now his gaze was sharp, cold, and lethal. The piercing blue eyes darkened, as deep and tumultuous as a raging ocean, carrying a dangerous undercurrent. He was furious. No, he was restraining his fury. Beneath the crisp white shirt and perfectly tailored black suit, his body was tense as stone. The veins in his forearm bulged as his fists clenched tightly. He felt as if he were standing before a storm named Grace. The woman who had abandoned him without a word. The woman who had just reappeared in his life, bringing with her Max, a child with his exact eyes, a son he had never known existed. Grace stood there, eerily calm. No fear, no guilt. Her head was held high, shoulders squared, chin lifted with quiet defiance, as if the man before her was of no consequence. She wore a deep sapphire gown that accentuated her graceful curves, the high heels elongating her already statuesque frame, making her appear both delicate and unbreakably strong. Her long brown hair was pulled into a sleek ponytail, revealing the elegant slope of her neck. But what captivated Vincent, what he couldn't tear his gaze from, were her eyes, sharp, unyielding, as if the past 4 years had turned her into someone entirely new. She was no longer the soft, adoring girl who once stood in the golden afternoon light, gazing at him with unwavering devotion. That gaze was gone. In its place was fire, a fire that had been burning for 4 long years. Vincent clenched his jaw, his voice low and lethal. Do you care to explain, Grace? Grace's lips curved slightly, but it wasn't a smile. It was a sharp, mocking tilt, dripping with disdain. The boy is your son. A vilam sakitora a eget. The words landed like a punch to Vincent's chest. His hand, resting against the door, curled into a fist. His knuckles turned white. His muscles tensed, but he didn't move. His lips curled into a chilling smirk. And then he laughed, a cold, mocking laugh. You disappear for 4 years, only to show up at my engagement with a child and tell me he's mine? He stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate, like a predator closing in on its prey. His eyes darkened, voice dropping to a dangerously low register. Grace, do you take me for a fool? He didn't believe her. She didn't need him to. Grace didn't flinch. She stood firm, unwavering, her expression as composed as ever. If anything, she was disturbingly calm. Believe what you want. She shrugged, her voice devoid of emotion, as if his reaction didn't matter in the slightest. I didn't come here to demand anything from you. I came for a business meeting. My son got lost. That's all. She turned to leave, but Vincent moved. His arms shot out, slamming against the door in front of her. Bam! The impact reverberated through the room, shaking the heavy wooden door. Grace was trapped. Vincent's towering frame loomed over her, his presence overwhelming, his breath hot against her skin. But his eyes were cold as ice. Grace frowned but refused to back down. What are you doing, Vincent? Her voice remained steady, but there was a flicker of caution in her gaze. Vincent tilted his head, the smirk never leaving his lips. That's what I should be asking you. He leaned in, their faces only inches apart, his deep blue eyes boring into hers. Is that boy really mine? Yes, Grace answered without hesitation. Vincent's breath hitched. His grip on the doorframe tightened. Then why didn't you tell me? Grace's hands clenched at her sides. Why should I have? Vincent froze for a brief moment. No one ever spoke to him that way, but Grace had never been like anyone else. She met his gaze head on, her eyes brimming with resentment and pain. Why should I tell a man who abandoned me? And then she walked away. Chapter 3. DNA Test. The Undeniable Truth. Steele Medical. Private elite clinic. The air inside the laboratory was so thick it felt as if the entire world had stopped spinning. Vincent Steele sat on a long bench, one hand pressed against his forehead, the other clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. In front of him, a single sheet of paper lay neatly on the glass table, yet it held the weight of a ticking bomb, moments away from detonation. The room was so silent that the faint dripping of condensation from the air conditioning unit was the only sound. Grace Carter stood by the window, her vacant eyes gazing outside. Arms crossed, her slender back resting against the wall, she showed no trace of emotion on her face. Neither of them spoke a word. The suffocating silence stretched between them. Two people who had once loved each other, now standing on opposite sides of an unbridgeable chasm. The doctor slowly pushed the document toward Vincent. Mr. Steele, the test results are here. Vincent's hand reached out, but just as his fingers brushed the paper, they froze midair. He was afraid. Damn it, for the first time in his life, Vincent Steele was afraid of a piece of paper. Taking a deep breath, Vincent snatched up the results, his eyes scanning the bolded words. Max is his biological son. Undeniable. His body went rigid, his sharp blue eyes widened, pupils constricting as if he had just taken a blow straight to the chest. The paper trembled slightly in his grip. Not because of the air conditioning, but because his hands were shaking. The boy was really his. For 4 years he had a son. 4 damn years, and he never knew. A violent storm erupted inside him. Shock, fury, agony. His fingers tightened around the paper, crumpling it under the sheer force of his rage. Lifting his head, his eyes burned with a fiery intensity. You hid my son from me for 4 years. His voice was raw, hoarse, like razor blades scraping against his throat. No one had ever made Vincent Steele lose control like this. No one had ever dared to conceal such an unforgivable truth from him. But Grace Carter, she had done it. Grace remained disturbingly calm. She met his gaze without blinking, without wavering. You were the one who left me first. Her voice was neither loud nor soft, yet every word sliced through Vincent like a blade to his heart. He froze. A whirlwind of confusion crashed into him. He left her? What the hell was she talking about? Vincent had never abandoned her. 4 years ago, Grace had vanished without a trace. He had searched for her. He had turned New York upside down looking for her. He had gone insane for her. And now she was standing here, telling him he was the one who left? Vincent's jaw clenched, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. What did you just say? A flicker of pain crossed Grace's eyes. So quick it almost went unnoticed. But then it was gone. She smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the most bitter smile in the world. Ask your mother. The room turned to ice. Vincent's breath caught. His mother? She just said his mother. Silence descended. Grace didn't say another word. She simply stood there watching him, waiting, but her eyes had already spoken volumes. There was something Vincent had never known, a secret that had been buried for 4 years, and his mother was at the center of it. Chapter 4, Vincent's Mother's Secret. Steele Manor, where the truth was buried. The New York sky loomed dark and heavy, as if heralding an impending storm. Thick clouds swallowed the sun, casting a cold gray shroud over the city. Steele Manor, one of the most opulent estates in America. Power and wealth were etched into every marble column, every meticulously polished floor tile. But today, this grand estate was not a symbol of prestige. It was a battlefield. The massive front doors slammed open with a resounding bang. Vincent Steele stormed inside, his face dark as a thundercloud, his piercing blue eyes ablaze, as if he were ready to burn the entire place down. He had been betrayed, not by a business rival, but by his own mother. Victoria Steele sat gracefully on an extravagant red velvet sofa in the grand living room. Before her, a delicate porcelain teacup of Earl Grey still steamed. His mother, the elegant, powerful, and ice-cold Victoria Steele, lifted her gaze as her son charged in like an unstoppable force. She did not flinch. She did not panic. She did not defend herself. She had known this day would come, placing her teacup down with impeccable poise, her fingers steady, her face serene, as if she were merely discussing the weather. Vincent stopped directly in front of her, his voice a thunderous roar. "Mother, what did you do to Grace 4 years ago?" Victoria met his gaze, her expression utterly unmoved. She exhaled softly. "I simply helped you avoid an unsuitable relationship." Crack! Vincent's palm slammed down onto the glass table. The surface trembled beneath the force of his anger, reflecting the image of a man on the brink of destruction, a man drowning in rage and agony. His chest heaved, his voice dangerously low. "You forced her to leave." Victoria shrugged, unbothered, arrogant. "She was not right for you, Vincent." Calmly, she lifted her teacup once more, taking a leisurely sip, as if this conversation was of no real significance, as if she had not just confessed to ruining her son's life. Setting the cup down again, she added, voice edged with subtle mockery, "And now you have a proper marriage to Isabella." When everything shattered, Vincent laughed. But it wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was bitter, sharp as broken glass. He took a step back, as if absorbing a blow straight to the chest. For 4 years, he had tormented himself with the same unanswered questions. Why had Grace left him? Why hadn't she said a word? Why had she vanished as if she had never existed? And now he had his answer. He had not been abandoned by Grace. He had been betrayed by his own mother. Vincent's fists clenched, his knuckles turning white. His blue eyes burned like fire. "You had no right to decide for me." His voice was low, shaking with barely contained fury. But Victoria remained as composed as ever. She merely tilted her head, her voice devoid of warmth. "You were too naive to understand, Vincent." Cold, unrelenting. "You needed a woman of your caliber, someone who could elevate your career, not a worthless girl with nothing to offer." Smash! Vincent swiped the teacup from her hand, sending it crashing to the floor. Porcelain shattered. White shards scattered across the crimson velvet carpet. For the first time, Victoria blinked. She had not expected that. Vincent stared at the woman who had raised him. But today, he no longer saw her as his mother. Today, she was simply the person who had destroyed his life. "Then tell me." His voice was ice, his eyes a storm. "What do you think of Max?" Victoria stilled. A single heartbeat passed. And then she laughed, cold, merciless. She arched a perfectly sculpted brow. "An illegitimate child," she mused, her tone laced with disdain. "He has no value to the Steele family." That was the final straw. Vincent took a step forward. His eyes darkened. His voice sharpened like a blade. "Max is my son. He carries my blood. And I will not let you lay a finger on him." For the first time, Victoria said nothing. She merely studied Vincent in silence, as if trying to comprehend how the son she had raised could now stand against her. Then she sighed, a soft, indifferent exhale. One day, you'll see. I was always right. Vincent turned away. He no longer believed her. From this moment on, he had only one goal: to win back Grace, to reclaim his son, even if it meant going to war against the entire world. Chapter 5. Another man wants to take Vincent's place. Outside Carter Tech headquarters, a biting wind howled through Manhattan's towering skyline as Vincent Steele stood before the gleaming glass structure of Carter Tech. This was the company Grace had built from the ground up, a once small startup that had now become one of New York's most promising tech enterprises. He stared up at the illuminated logo, his hands clenching into fists. 4 years ago, she was a gentle woman in his arms. Now she was independent, powerful. She had built her own empire. And what unsettled Vincent the most, she no longer needed him. But he needed her, and he needed his son. He had lost them once. He would not lose them again. The moment Vincent stepped inside the grand lobby of Carter Tech, the receptionist immediately straightened, recognizing him. "Mr. Steele, CEO Carter is in a meeting on the rooftop." Vincent wasted no time. Without acknowledging the stunned expressions around him, he strode purposefully toward the elevators. No one was going to stop him from seeing Grace. The elevator doors slid open, and the first thing Vincent saw was Grace with another man. The man stood too close to her. Tall, immaculately dressed in an expensive tailored suit, a sharply defined jawline, neatly styled brown hair, and an unmistakable air of confidence. He looked at Grace with something Vincent recognized instantly: affection. Vincent felt something dark coil inside him. Who the hell was he? And he wasn't the only one with questions. Grace's eyes widened slightly upon seeing him, but she didn't move. She didn't rush to explain. She didn't step away. She didn't look guilty. That only made Vincent's frustration intensify. The tension between the three of them thickened like a storm cloud. The other man finally broke the silence, offering a confident smirk as he stepped forward. Ryan Walker, a young, ambitious, and wildly successful entrepreneur. And from the way he stood beside Grace, it was obvious he wanted her. Vincent's gaze darkened as Ryan extended a hand toward him, voice smooth and diplomatic. "Vincent Steele, we finally meet." Vincent didn't take the offered handshake. His ice-cold stare flicked past Ryan, straight to Grace. She didn't react. She didn't rush to explain herself. She didn't push Ryan away, and that infuriated Vincent. Ryan glanced at Grace before speaking again, his voice calm, but laced with quiet challenge. "Grace, I don't care about your past." He said it gently, yet purposefully. "If you want, I can be a father to Max." Vincent froze, his blood turned to fire. "What did you just say?" His voice dropped to a dangerous, lethal whisper, like a storm brewing before the thunder strikes. Ryan remained composed, but his smirk held a glint of provocation. "It's simple." He met Vincent's gaze head-on. "Max needs a father. Grace needs a man by her side. I can be both." A crackling silence, and then, crack. Vincent's fist clenched so tightly his knuckles turned bone-white. For the first time in his life, he wanted to kill a man. Vincent stepped forward, towering over Ryan. They were eye to eye now, the air between them electric with tension. Possessiveness burned through Vincent like wildfire. "My son doesn't need a replacement." His voice was low, sharp, like a blade pressing against skin. But Ryan didn't back down. "Then what, Vincent?" Ryan's gaze remained steady. "Does Max even know you're his father? Or is he just another person you abandoned?" Boom! Ryan had just poked the beast. Vincent lunged. In an instant, he grabbed Ryan by the collar, yanking him forward. His blue eyes flared dangerously, a storm of raw, unfiltered rage. "You think you can replace me?" Ryan barely flinched, his smirk unwavering. "Maybe Grace thinks I can." Vincent tightened his grip. Just a little more pressure, and Ryan would feel just how deadly serious he was. But Grace intervened. "Enough!" Her voice wasn't loud, but it commanded authority. She grabbed Vincent's wrist, pulling his hand away from Ryan. And then she looked him in the eyes, and the same eyes he once drowned in. "You don't get to control my life anymore." Vincent froze. What did she just say? She just said he had no right to control her. She just said he didn't matter anymore. She just said maybe Ryan was an option. A sharp, merciless pain struck Vincent's chest. Ryan adjusted his collar, smirking. "You heard her, Vincent." Vincent's blood boiled, but Grace's gaze didn't waver. Did she really want him to walk away? Did she really want him out of her and Max's life? Vincent knew the answer. She was testing him. She wanted to see if he would give up, and he wouldn't. Not this time. He had let her go once. He had lost his son once. He would not let it happen again. Vincent took a deep breath, reining in his fury. He needed to stay in control. "We need to talk." His voice was firm, unshakable. Ryan started to speak, but Grace lifted a hand, stopping him. "I'll be fine." She said it without even looking at Ryan. That was all Vincent needed. Without giving her a chance to refuse, he grabbed her wrist, pulling her into her office. The door slammed shut. Now, nothing stood between them. Minutes ago, Ryan had been between them, but not anymore. Vincent's breath was heavy, his jaw tight, as he took a step closer. Grace didn't flinch, didn't back down, even though her heartbeat pounded. Vincent inhaled deeply, struggling to control the rage and desperation tangled in his chest. But when he spoke, his voice was sharp, dangerous. "Are you going to marry him?" His words dropped like a hammer. Grace's expression didn't change. Her lips curved, but it was a smirk, not a smile. "That's none of your business." A muscle ticked in Vincent's jaw. His fists clenched. "None of my business?" A bitter chuckle escaped him. "So you really plan to marry him?" His voice was low, hoarse, filled with something dangerously close to pain. Grace held her breath. She refused to let him see her falter. "Vincent, you were the one who left me first. You don't get to come back now and ask me questions like this." Vincent felt something shatter inside him. He wanted to deny it, wanted to fight it, wanted to tell her she was wrong, but she wasn't. 4 years ago, he hadn't been there when she needed him most, and now he had to prove he would never leave her again. Chapter 6. When Love Awakens Once More. The Central Park. The first day, Vincent met his son again. Golden sunlight filtered gently through the lush green leaves, casting a warm glow over the still waters of Central Park's lake. Birds chirped melodiously, their songs blending with the laughter of children playing on the open grass. In a secluded corner, Vincent Steele stood frozen, his piercing blue eyes locked onto the small figure darting across the playground. Maximum, his son. The boy had the same clear blue eyes as him, but not the same smile. Max's smile was bright, carefree, adorned with dimples that Vincent had never seen in his own reflection. A strange warmth seeped into Vincent's chest, a feeling he had never known before. And with it, a pang of regret. He had missed too much. In the days that followed, Vincent made a decision. He would make up for the years lost. But he didn't demand his role as a father. He didn't force Max to accept him immediately. Instead, he was patient. He showed up, every day. In the morning, when Grace dropped Max off at school, Vincent was there, to wave, to smile, to say a simple, "Good morning." In the afternoon, when Max ran out of the school gates, Vincent was always the first person waiting for him. On weekends, he took Max to the park, teaching him how to fly a model plane, how to kick a soccer ball, how to recognize constellations in the night sky. He became a part of Max's life, not through force, but through love. From a distance, Grace watched. She saw every moment, every patient step Vincent took to earn their son's trust. And each time, her hands clenched a little tighter. For 4 years, she had learned to live without him. She had built a fortress around herself. She had promised never to let anyone in again. But now, Vincent was breaking through every wall she had carefully constructed, not with words and not with empty promises, but with the way he loved their son. He wasn't just a man who had once broken her heart. He was proving himself to be a good father. One late afternoon, Grace stood by the window, her expression softer than she had ever allowed herself to be. Outside on the front steps, Vincent and Max sat side by side. Max was grinning, holding up a piece of paper, a messy drawing from school. Vincent leaned in, his expression full of warmth as he listened to his son's excited chatter. At that moment, Grace's heart skipped a beat. This was what she had once dreamed of, a family, a father who was there for his child. But then memories resurfaced, the pain of the past, the wounds that had not fully healed. Could she truly forget? Could she allow herself to trust again? That night, as Grace tucked Max into bed, he suddenly wrapped his small arms around her neck and whispered, "Mommy, can Daddy stay with me?" Grace froze. She looked into her son's hopeful blue eyes, eyes that reminded her of Vincent. A part of her wanted to say no, but another part of her couldn't deny that her heart was wavering once more. Chapter 7. The climax, Max in danger. New York's dazzling skyline glowed through the night, but for Grace, darkness had swallowed her entire world. Max had been kidnapped. It happened in an instant. She and Max had just stepped out of a cafe near Carter Tech. Grace was checking a message on her phone when she heard the screech of tires. A black van skidded to a stop at the curb. Before Grace could react, a rough hand grabbed Max, yanking him inside. "Mommy!" The van doors slammed shut. The vehicle sped off at a terrifying speed, leaving Grace standing in the middle of the street, frozen in shock, her breath caught in her throat. She had lost him. "Vincent! They took Max!" Her scream shattered through the phone, her voice raw with terror. On the other end, Vincent went still. The glass in his hand shattered. Blood dripped from his palm where the shards had cut him, but he felt nothing. "What happened?" His voice was dangerously low, a storm brewing beneath the surface. "A black van. They took him." Grace's voice cracked. The world collapsed around him. Someone had dared to touch his son. The police were immediately mobilized. Detective Ethan Turner stood in front of Vincent and Grace, his face grim. "We've locked down the major roads. Traffic cameras are being scanned for any trace of the vehicle." But Grace couldn't wait. Then, her phone buzzed. The tension in the room thickened. Vincent pulled out his phone at the same time. A blocked number. His gut told him this was the call. He answered. "Steele." A low, rasping chuckle crackled through the receiver. "You never saw this coming, did you?" Vincent's grip tightened, his jaw clenched. "What do you want?" "You ruined me, Steele. You took everything from me. Now I'm taking something from you." He already knew who it was. Ethan Black, a former business rival, a man Vincent had crushed mercilessly in a high-stakes corporate battle. "Want to see your son again? Prepare $50 million. No hesitation, Grace cried out. "I'll pay. Just don't hurt my son." Vincent spun toward her, fury flashing in his eyes. "What the hell are you doing?" His voice was like thunder, a mix of rage and disbelief. Grace's tear-filled eyes met his. "Vincent, I won't gamble with Max's life." Her voice broke, her entire body trembling. But Vincent would gamble, because he knew something far more important than money. A man like Ethan Black would never keep his word. Even if they paid, Max wouldn't be safe. When Vincent refused to back down, he turned to the detective. "Give me 30 minutes. If the police can't find Max by then, I'm handling this myself." Turner's eyes narrowed. "Steele, you can't take this into your own hands. This is a professional kidnapping." Vincent's expression turned deadly. "I don't need your permission. I just need my son." He wasted no time. Vincent deployed his private security team. Steele Enterprises' satellite surveillance systems were tapped into. Within 20 minutes, the black van was located in an abandoned warehouse in South Manhattan. Vincent loaded his gun. He would not let anyone take his son from him. Breaking into the warehouse, the metal doors slammed open. The deafening crash echoed through the cold, empty space. A dim light flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows across the walls. And in the center, Max was tied to a chair. Tears streaked his cheeks, his small frame trembling. But when he saw his father, hope lit up in his blue eyes. "Daddy!" Standing in front of him, Ethan Black, a broken man, his eyes bloodshot with vengeance, his face hollow from loss. And in his hand, a loaded gun, a father's fury. Vincent stepped forward, his entire body coiled like a ticking bomb. Every fiber of his being focused on one thing. His son. Max's gaze locked onto his father, his little voice quivering with fear. "Daddy!" In an instant, Ethan pressed the gun against Max's temple. "Don't move, Steele." Vincent's hand slowly lifted into the air. His heart pounded violently, but his face remained calm. One wrong move, and Max could die. "You want me?" Vincent's voice was steady, powerful, a clear declaration of war. "If you want to kill someone, kill me." Ethan's grip on the gun tightened. "Do you take me for a fool, Steele? You can shoot me right now, but if you kill him, you'll never leave this place alive." Ethan hesitated. For the first time, he knew Vincent was right. If he murdered a child, there would be no escape. He gritted his teeth, frustration flashing across his face. Then, he sneered. "Fine, then I'll kill you first." The gun shifted, now aimed at Vincent. Outside dash. The police were in position, snipers trained on Ethan. But Ethan acted first. Bang! The gunshot shook the warehouse. The bullet struck Vincent, just inches from his heart. Blood splattered. His body jerked from the impact. But he didn't fall. His legs stayed firm. Pain ripped through him, but he refused to collapse. Not yet. Not until he was sure Max was safe. The police fired back. A single shot straight into Ethan's shoulder. His gun clattered to the ground. In seconds, officers swarmed the room. The fight was over. But for Vincent, darkness began closing in. "Vincent!" Grace rushed forward, dropping to her knees beside him. Her hands trembled as she cradled his face. "Stay with me." Vincent struggled to focus. Max sobbed, clutching onto his father. "Daddy, please don't leave." A faint, pained smile tugged at Vincent's lips. He lifted a shaky hand, brushing his son's tear-streaked cheek. "I'm not going anywhere." His voice was weak but filled with love. Darkness closed in. But before he lost consciousness, he knew one thing. He had protected his son. Chapter 8, A Confession in the Rain. New York Hospital, 2 a.m. The soft pitter-patter of rain against the hospital window matched the frantic rhythm of Grace's heartbeat. The hospital air was cold, heavy. On the bed before her, Vincent lay unconscious, his face pale, his chest wrapped in tight white bandages, now stained red with dried blood. A few centimeters. That was all it would have taken. And he would have died. She could have lost him forever. Her hands clenched into fists. For 4 years, she had told herself she didn't need him. But the moment he collapsed in a pool of blood, every lie she had told herself fell apart. She loved him. She had never stopped loving him, and she couldn't lose him again. When Grace could no longer hide her feelings, she took a hesitant step forward, as if afraid that if she moved too fast, he would disappear. Then another. Then another. Finally, she knelt beside his bed, her trembling fingers reaching for his hand. His skin was cold. Her tears fell, warm against his motionless hand. "Vincent, please don't leave me again." Her voice broke. "I was wrong to leave you. I tried to forget you, but I never could. I hated you, but I never stopped loving you." She lowered her head, her forehead resting against his hand, her shoulders shaking violently. "Please don't leave me again." When Vincent heard the truth, the man who had seemed deep in sleep moved. His fingers twitched, curling lightly around hers. Grace gasped. He had heard her. His eyelids fluttered, then slowly opened. Those piercing blue eyes, now soft, filled with emotion, locked onto hers. He stared at her for a long, long time. "Grace." His voice was hoarse, weak. But it carried the weight of everything he had wanted to say for 4 years. Grace broke down. Tears streamed freely down her face. "I'm sorry." His voice barely above a whisper, but the pain in his eyes was unbearable. "I didn't protect you." Grace shook her head violently, her tears falling onto his hand. No, it was my fault. I didn't trust you. His fingers tightened around hers. I only had you and Max. His voice wavered. Don't leave me again. When the past was revealed, 4 years ago. The golden sunset bathed the small apartment in warm light, but Grace felt nothing but cold. Across from her, Victoria Steele sat elegantly, her sharp eyes cutting through her like a blade. Did you really think you could be with my son? She placed a stack of photos on the table. Vincent sitting across from a beautiful woman in a fine restaurant. They were laughing. They were drinking wine. Grace's heart shattered. This is his future fiancée, a woman who is far more suited to him. Her voice was calm, cruel. And you? You were just a passing distraction. Then Victoria stepped closer. Her cold fingers pressed against Grace's stomach. If you don't leave, this child will never be born. Grace had been terrified. She had believed Vincent truly had someone else, and she had walked away. Present. Grace choked on a sob, her tears dripping onto his palm. I was wrong. I left without even telling you, but I couldn't bear it. Vincent's grip on her hand tightened. His eyes darkened with pain. That woman, she was my cousin. Grace's breath caught in her throat. My mother staged everything to make you misunderstand. But there was never anyone else, Grace. There was only ever you. His voice dropped to a whisper. We've lost too much time already. Grace wept, but this time she didn't run. Let me make it up to you, Vincent. Her hands cupped his face, her tears falling onto his skin. Let me love you again. Vincent smiled faintly, his fingers brushing her cheek. This time, I won't let you go. When Victoria Steele witnessed it all. Outside the hospital room, a woman stood in silence. Victoria Steele. Her expression darkened as she watched the scene before her. She had lost. 4 years ago, she had forced Grace away, but 4 years later, she came back. And this time, Vincent wouldn't let her go. Victoria's nails dug into her palm, drawing blood. But there was nothing she could do. She had lost. She turned on her heels clicking sharply against the hospital floor. But Vincent no longer cared. He didn't even notice her. Because this time, he only cared about the woman crying in his arms, and he would never let her go again. Chapter 9, A Love Finally Fulfilled, Steele Enterprises Headquarters. This was a place where every word Vincent Steele spoke could shake the financial world. But today, it wasn't about money. It wasn't about power. Today, he stood here for his family. Hundreds of reporters crowded the press conference hall, flashes flickering like a storm. Millions of people watched the live broadcast. Because today, Vincent Steele was making an announcement to the world about the woman he loved, about the son he had lost for 4 years, about the family he would protect until his last breath. When Vincent broke down every barrier. Standing on the grand stage, Vincent was dressed in a sharp black suit, but his confidence wasn't in the fabric. It was in his purpose. He hadn't prepared a scripted speech. There was only the truth, only what his heart wanted to say. I know there are many questions today about Grace Carter, about Max Carter. His deep voice rippled through the hall. Then his next words sent shockwaves through the world. Let me answer all of them in one sentence. Grace is my wife, and Max is my son. The room erupted. Reporters gasped. Cameras clicked furiously. Microphones extended as endless questions were thrown at him. But Vincent didn't care. Because this time, he would not hide. This time, he would protect Grace and Max in front of the entire world. When old chains were broken. Below the stage, Isabella Laurent froze. Every eye in the room turned to her. The engagement between two elite families, the carefully orchestrated alliance, was now nothing but a joke. Vincent had chosen love over power. The engagement was officially canceled. Everything was turned upside down, but he had no regrets. When Vincent proposed, a promise never to let go, a lakeside mansion at sunset. The sky blazed in hues of fiery orange and soft pink, casting golden reflections onto the lake. Grace stood on the stone terrace gazing at the perfectly set dinner table beneath twinkling fairy lights. Candles, fine wine, red roses. This was not an ordinary dinner. She turned, and there he was. Vincent stood a few steps behind her, hands in his pockets, watching her with a rare, soft smile. Her breath caught. "What are you doing?" she asked, her heartbeat unsteady. Vincent took slow, deliberate steps toward her. Not with his usual coldness, not with his usual control, but as a man in love, a man who refused to lose her again. When the proposal came straight from his heart, standing before her, he reached for her hand. His grip was warm, steady. Grace's heart pounded violently. "Grace Carter." His voice was deep, filled with a determination that could never be shaken. "4 years ago, I lost you. For 4 years, I lived in regret." He took a slow breath, his thumb gently stroking the back of her hand. His blue eyes never wavered. "I don't want to live another day without you by my side. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. But if you give me a chance, I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you." Grace felt her chest tighten. She knew he was serious. She knew this wasn't just words. She knew, because his eyes told her everything. Then, Vincent let go of her hand and knelt on one knee. When the defining moment arrived, a small velvet box opened. Inside, a dazzling diamond ring. The golden light of the evening caught the gem's brilliance, reflecting in Vincent's unwavering gaze. "Grace Carter, marry me." His voice didn't shake. There was no hesitation, because he knew. She was the only woman he wanted to walk beside him for the rest of his life. Tears welled in Grace's eyes. She had imagined many versions of her future, but she had never imagined this moment would come. Vincent didn't rush her. He let her feel. "Let me be the one who holds your hand every morning. Let me take care of you when you're tired. Let me stand by your side, Love Max, and protect the family we've built. And let me love you again. This time, forever." A tear slipped down Grace's cheek. She didn't hesitate. She smiled through her tears, nodding fiercely. "Yes, I'll marry you." And in that moment, their world became whole. 3 weeks later, the wedding. A magnificent seaside estate in New York. Soft golden sunlight streamed over an enormous garden, where rows of white chairs lined the lush green lawn, draped in white roses and fairy lights. Today, Grace Carter officially became Vincent Steele's wife. She stood at the end of the aisle, breathtaking in a pure white wedding gown, her eyes sparkling as she gazed at the man waiting for her. This was what they had lost 4 years ago, but today they had found their way back. Amidst applause and blessings, a woman stood in silence, Victoria Steele. She watched as her son pressed a tender kiss to Grace's forehead, her sharp eyes betraying the storm of emotions within her. She had fought this marriage. She had torn them apart with her own hands. Yet in the end, Vincent still chose Grace, and Grace remained the only woman Vincent ever loved. A barely audible sigh escaped Victoria's lips before she took a step forward, heading toward the stage where Vincent and Grace had just exchanged rings. The entire room fell silent. Every gaze shifted to her. No one knew what Victoria Steele was about to say. Grace instinctively tightened her grip on Vincent's hand, her body tense with uncertainty. But this time, Victoria had not come to separate them. She stopped before them, her once unyielding gaze now softened by something else. For the first time in her life, Victoria Steele admitted she was wrong. When Victoria Steele spoke the words no one expected, "Grace," her voice was steady, but it lacked the contempt and scorn it once carried. "4 years ago, I was wrong." The words hung in the air, sending a ripple of shock through the crowd. Grace stilled. Vincent narrowed his gaze, watching his mother carefully. The entire hall fell into stunned silence. Victoria met Grace's eyes, direct, unwavering. "I did everything I could to keep you away from Vincent, but I can't deny the truth." A pause, and then she took a breath. "You are the only one who can make him happy." Grace didn't speak. Her lips trembled. Her chest tightened with a flood of emotions she couldn't name. This woman, who once called her unworthy, who tore her from Vincent without remorse, was now standing before her, acknowledging her. When Victoria accepted Max, slowly Victoria's gaze shifted to Max. The little boy was nestled in the arms of a relative, his round blue eyes staring curiously at the grandmother he had never truly known. Victoria bent slightly, reaching out with careful hesitation. Her fingers brushed against Max's soft cheek. And then, in a voice softer than anyone had ever heard from her, "Max, I was wrong not to accept you from the start. But from today, I will be your grandmother." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Victoria Steele, a woman of pride, power, and unwavering control, had just swallowed her pride and admitted her mistake. For the first time, Grace saw no arrogance in her gaze, only sincerity. When Grace forgave, Grace's lips quivered. Tears blurred her vision. She had never expected this. Never expected Victoria Steele to bend. She inhaled sharply, gathering her emotions, then nodded. "Thank you, Victoria." And with those words, everything changed. As the golden hues of sunset bathed the celebration, as applause and cheers filled the air, their family was finally whole. At last, Victoria Steele let go of her pride and accepted the daughter-in-law she once despised. At last, Vincent and Grace had the happiness they were meant to have all along, a love that endured. True love is not just passion, it is understanding, patience, and trust. The greatest mistake in love is not the fights, not the struggles, but walking away before knowing the truth. Grace left Vincent because of a misunderstanding. Vincent did not fight hard enough to keep her. Yet despite the pain, they still found their way back to each other. Because real love will always find a way. Learning to trust, to face the past instead of running from it, that is how you hold on to happiness forever. Thank you for following this heartfelt story. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.